melodic heavy metal. Playing it heavier, louder, raunchier, faster. 99.1 CJAM. This is the Signals of Intuition.
The following interview was recorded on May 16th, 2013. 99.1 CJM FM, you're listening to the Signals of Intuition, 2 hours of melodic hard rock and heavy metal coming your way. That was Skid Row right there with Monkey Business, live off their Subhuman Beings on tour record, released only in Japan. Tonight on the show, we've got a very special guest. We've got Snake of Skid Row on the line right now. He's been gracious enough to give us a 2-hour slot. So without further ado, Snake, are you there, man?
Hey, Brandon.
Hey, Snake, how's it going, man?
Nothing much. How are you, man?
Doing well.
Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Oh, no problem. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no worries.
So for this interview, do you mind if we sort of step back from the beginning and then work our way from the beginning of you as a musician in the band, and then we'll slowly work our way up to the new album?
Whatever you want to do, man.
Okay, great. Okay, so starting from the beginning of your career, what were some of your earliest influences?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I grew up in a family of 5 boys, myself included, all older than me. I was the youngest of 5 boys, and my mom pretty much raised us. My dad would come home like once a year. He lived in Florida, or once or twice a year. And but my mom pretty much raised us, and the great thing about my house was from as early as I can remember, there was such a variety of music being played in my house. Everything from Elvis to the Beach Boys to Janis Joplin to the Beatles, Procol Harum, the Rolling Stones, Spooky Tooth, all the Motown stuff. Motown was big in my house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a big influence. Gosh, the Animals, the Yardbirds, Led Zeppelin. And as I got older, the early Springsteen stuff, and just a myriad of artists. And the great thing about that was, and all the 50s artists too, that's what, my mom was into, like Richie Valens and Dion and the Belmonts, and, the Big Bopper and Jerry Lee Lewis, especially Carl Perkins. So all these things had such a profound influence on me. And the great thing about being so young and being exposed to such a variety of music was that there was no such thing as genres. The only thing I thought was a genre, which I guess it was Motown. Because Motown was encompassing of so many amazing artists that came out of Motown, obviously.
Yeah.
And so being the area that you're in, I'm sure Motown had a profound effect on, the surrounding area of, either your parents or your grandparents or something like that. It was a huge influence on me. And again, I had no preconceived notions about genres and labels or anything like that. If you liked something, you liked it because it moved you. It was it jostled your emotions. It did something inside of you that nothing else had done before, and it maintained that. And that was my first indoctrination into the power of music.
Yeah. What's interesting is I interviewed Jeff Tate not too long ago, and he said that very same thing. He said, back in those days, it was just a cool song was a cool song. It wasn't like now where everything's so separated. Well, you're power metal and you're hard rock and you're, electronic and you're this. And he's just like, a cool song was a cool song, know?
It's so true, man. It really is true. And I maintain that to this day. I think I can enjoy a Pantera song as much as a great song from Pink, and she's got quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I don't put boundaries on anything. If I hear a song, I love to hear a song and not know who it is, and then at the end of the song, if I love it, I ask who it is. If I hate it, I ask who it is. And 9 times out of 10, well, not 9 times, but a lot of the times, it's pretty surprising. It's pretty surprising how that works. And I find that, with a lot of different artists. And that's the beauty of discovering music. It should be about the music, not the name attached to it.
Yeah, for sure. So you grew up with all these great influences. How did you get started playing music and playing guitar?
Man, the long and short of it is, December 16th, 1977, I went to see Kiss at Madison Square Garden. Up until that point, I had been a full-blown 24/7 jock, playing baseball and basketball and practicing that every day and becoming pretty good at it, and a couple scouts came to see me at an early age for baseball, and it was all great. I saw Kiss, and it changed everything, man.
Wow.
It changed everything. It changed my life completely, as it did countless thousands of other musicians. And what it did for me is it made me realize that I wanted to do music. In what way, I had no idea. I didn't have the answer to that yet. Took about a year and a half before I figured out that I wanted to play guitar. And how that happened was that one of my older brothers had gotten like a cheap acoustic guitar, one of those $40 guitars or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And he got this, he got this this lesson package called Quick Pickin' Fun Stromin' Home Guitar Course. I'll never forget it because it's on vinyl, and it was four pieces of vinyl. And he did it for maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month, and he couldn't do it. And I heard him trying to do it, and he was trying. He wasn't accomplishing it, that's for sure. And when he gave it up and said, "Ah, to hell with it," that was my opportunity to not only get my foot in music, but to outdo my brother. And as a younger brother, that's a big thing. You want to outdo your older brother at something.
Yeah.
And that was it. And so I picked up the guitar, and I loved it immediately, man. It was just one of those things like serendipity or something, man. It was another drastic, life-changing moment.
So you didn't go through a phase where, you say, I want to learn guitar, and then you get bought a guitar, and then you don't touch it for 3 months, right? Like, you saw that guitar was free, and you said, I'm going for it.
Oh, man, absolutely. As soon as I picked up the guitar, I knew that that's what I'm supposed to do. And that's when I gave up sports completely. And my family was, "You've got to be kidding me." And I'm like, "Man, I know what I want to do." And they're like, You're not even 15, and you know what you want to do with the rest of your life. And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And they're like, "Do you realize what you're giving up?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And they're like, "You had scouts come to see you, man." And mind you, I have 4 older brothers and an uncle who played semi-pro baseball as well.
Oh, wow.
So all these folks were not happy. So there was quite a distance that was wedged in between myself and my family, but it wouldn't deter me. I didn't hate them for it or anything like that. I had a keen understanding at that age that I understood where they were coming from, and it gave me the impetus and the inspiration to prove everybody wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody, I've read so many interviews from guitar players and vocalists and band members throughout the years that they picked up their instrument or started singing or whatever because they wanted to get laid. Well, that was certainly not the case with me at all. I couldn't give a shit less. All I cared about was that guitar. And I cared about progressing enough where I earned to get another guitar a little bit better, and then I progressed and get it better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I gotta be honest with you, I earned it. I would go out and I worked for the township painting fire hydrants. I'd work in the sewage department during the summer. I'd wash dishes at night. I worked with my brother in the summers on his tractor trailer. He was a long distance tractor trailer driver, so I'd work with him on the truck. And I mean, I made my money and I bought my guitars. It made me appreciate it just solidified my love for the guitar even more in my family's eyes. They just, after they saw that and how hard I worked, and man, I came straight home from school and I was right in my bedroom. The door was locked. At one point I was smoking, so I'd light up a cigarette and I just put on every record that I possibly could, every Kiss record, every Frampton Comes Alive, Humble Pie, Jeff Beck, and then Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and the whole new wave of British heavy metal, UFO and Scorpions, and I mean, it just was. I was so thankful that there was so much great music out there that I could actually buy, and I spent all my days learning these riffs and these songs and these solos, and at that, when you first start out playing guitar, it's so exciting because you progress at such a rapid rate.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that for like a newborn child, the amount of knowledge they get in those first 5 years is if you think about it, is unbelievable.
Oh, for sure.
And so that's what it was for the first couple of years of playing. The first 3 years, maybe even more so, you're jumping leaps and bounds in your ability, and it's so fucking exciting because one day you wake up and you go, holy shit, I'm so much better than I was yesterday, and it's really exciting, and it keeps you glued. So with all the time I was putting in between school and then working and then practicing, trust me, man, there was no time to get laid. I couldn't give a shit less. So that was not my inspiration. My inspiration was I wanted to be Ace Frehley. I wanted to be Michael Schenker. I wanted to be, Dave Murray and Dennis Stratton, and then later Adrian Smith. I wanted to be Glenn Tipton, Kiki Downing, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, Jeff Beck, Billy Gibbons, David Gilmour, Uli John Roth. I mean, I could go on and fucking on.
Well, you've already answered my next two questions about guitar influences too, so that's great.
But you know what, too, though? It's not that I was only influenced by guitar players. I was influenced hugely by vocalists as well. And I guess that's what got me into songwriting and stuff from a melody and lyric standpoint as well, because I was hugely influenced by lyrics of songs and melodies of songs. And that's what really, really helped hugely influence me as a songwriter. It wasn't just about me writing riffs. It was about, writing melodies and writing lyrics as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever tried your hand in singing at all?
I'm terrible.
Oh, so you just realized quickly on I'm tone deaf and sort of...
No, I'm not tone deaf. I can sing in key. I don't like the timbre and the tone of my voice.
Fair enough.
It's and I don't have a great range. All the early bands before Skid Row, I was a singer in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I sang. I shouldn't say up until Skid Row. I sang up until I started until I started bands that needed vocalists with a higher range, because I wanted to play Judas Priest, and I wanted to play, I wanted to play the first Queensryche EP. I wanted to play Lady Wore Black, and I wanted to play Queen of the Reich, and I couldn't sing those, so I had to find someone who could. But up until that point, and that was probably around, I don't know, 17. But up until that, I had bands from the get-go. I mean, I had bands from the beginning. As soon as I could play, a succession of chords, I had a band.
Oh, wow. Did you spend time playing high school dances and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. It was great.
And then so around that time, a lot of people probably aren't aware of this, but you were a member of Bon Jovi even before Skid Row. When and how long were you a member of that band?
Well, the funny thing was, it wasn't Bon Jovi at the time. Bon Jovi, the name of the band, didn't come into existence until they actually signed with Polygram Records, and Doc McGee was already managing them. I was 18. John and I grew up together, and we've remained best friends, since then, which is pretty amazing. But he was working at the Power Station in New York City, which is now Sony Studios, I believe. And his uncle owned it, and he had written a bunch of songs. He was a songwriter since I can remember. He written a song called Runaway, and there was a radio station in New York City called 104.3 WAPP, The Apple. Now, they were having a homegrown heroes type of contest, and they would pick a winner of the contest, and that winner would go out and play a bunch of radio shows for the station in the tri-state area. Well, lo and behold, he wins the contest. And it's like, holy shit. And he's like, now I got to put together a band, because he had, people who were in the studio at the Power Station play on the song and record the song. And actually, that song that they recorded there is the one that's on the first record.
So that's not Sambora playing
Yep.
on Runaway? No, really, eh?
That's Tim Pierce. Tim Pierce is, well, believe it or not, was and maybe still is Rick Springfield's guitar player.
Oh, wow.
He was Rick Springfield's guitar player back in the heyday of Rick Springfield, An Affair of the Heart and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He was a guitar player, fucking amazing guitar player. That solo is sick, man. That's a great guitar solo.
Oh, yeah.
And so after that, I mean, obviously he had no money to hire a studio musician, so I was in my I'm going to be Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, I'm a guitar hero, blah blah blah. I want to play Judas Priest phase. But he called me up, or I was over his house, whatever, and he said, I got to put together a band. Can you help me out? I was like, sure. He had Dave Bryan already from a previous band he had played in high school. Dave was a keyboard player, so he got Dave. I knew Alec John Such from the clubs. I was the bar manager of a club in New Jersey, which is now Starland Ballroom, which everybody plays, and was at the time it was called Willie's, and it wasn't even a club, but it was a club. And he used to play in a band called Phantom's Opera that was this really heavy-duty visual band, like fucking great band, man. They only played covers. They didn't have any originals, but boy, they just everything from like Alice Cooper and Kiss and Deep Purple, and the singer was amazing. You'd seen Queen like there's no tomorrow. And he was in that band, and we were friends. And then I told him about what was going on with John, so he came down and played, and so he was in the band. So now all we needed was a drummer, and he knew Tico Torres. Alec did. Tico came down and said, sure. Boom, we've got a band. We went out, and it was just John Bon Jovi. And we went out and played, I don't know, a bunch of shows, 6 shows, 7 shows. And again, I wanted to be the gunslinger. I wanted to be the flashy, whole thing with attempting to be Eddie Van Halen or Randy Rhoads or whomever.
Yeah.
That wasn't what he needed. And so there was Richie had been playing, in this little band that would play like the front room of this club, and they do stuff like Bad Company and stuff. And he was just, I immediately became friends with him because he's such a fucking great guitar player, most underrated guitar player in music for sure.
Oh, yeah, without question.
I mean, the guy just blazes, man, and we became fast friends. And he's got this singing voice that's incredible. And that's what John needed. So John was introduced to him, and John basically said, look, I'm going to go, with Richie. And I was like, I get it. I get it. I mean, you want Joe Perry to your Steven Tyler. You want, Jimmy Page to your Robert Plant and so forth. I go, I fucking get it completely. And so that was it. So I played in there for a little while, never any animosity about it or ill will. It was completely understandable, and to be quite honest, I wanted to start my own band. I always did. I never wanted to play for somebody else. And the only other thing I ever auditioned for, if you will, was Cinderella, and that was it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah.
So that would have been what, like an 84, 85?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
John was doing the 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit record down in Philadelphia. And so he was like, dude, you got to come see this band with me. So we went to see Cinderella, and John got his A&R guy, Derek Schulman, involved from Polygram. And Derek came down and loved the band, but felt that the drummer and the guitar player had to go. So immediately I was, I've never been shy about going up and talking to people or anything like that. And, I learned how to network my ass at a very, very early age, and probably out of insecurity. It's being insecure, you overblow other aspects of your personality to hide that insecurity. So I watched Cinderella play, and I introduced myself to Tommy Kiefer after the show, and I go, I know what's going on. I know you're going to get signed to Polygram Records. I know Derek Schulman, and I know you're going to get rid of your guitar player and your drummer, so I'm telling you right now, I'm your guitar player. So he's like, whoa! And so they did, a couple weeks later, they got rid of their guitar player and bass drummer. And I went down and auditioned with a bunch of other people. And it came down to Jeff LaBar and we went down again. And then we went down a third time. To Tommy's credit, he called me up and said, "Look, man, it was really difficult, but we're going to go with Jeff." And I really, really wanted that gig. I loved their songs. Again, it was 85 around there. And I love their songs. I loved Tommy's voice. I loved Eric. And I finally, after I didn't get that and pulled myself up on my bootstraps, said, "I'll never audition for anybody again, man. I'm, starting my own band." And that was literally what the impetus was to start the ball rolling for Skid Row.
Well, and speaking of getting the ball rolling on Skid Row, right now we've got to go to a break.
Yeah, of course.
But I was wondering if you could pick two songs from early Skid Row. Let's go one song from the first Matt Fallon demo, and then one song from the first record.
Sure.
So from the first Matt Fallon demo?
Youth Gone Wild.
Okay, yep, that was obviously a song that made Sebastian want to join the band. And then from the first record?
Sure, 18 in Life.
Okay, great. Yeah, I've actually got a really cool live version of that track from you guys in California in about 1989 or so I'm going to spin that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool. So from the first Matt Fallon demo of Skid Row, this is Youth Gone Wild. 99.1 CJAM FM. There's two tracks right there from Skid Row. That was 18 in Life, live from California in 1989, which was released as a radio promo, as well as a couple bonus tracks from the 18 in Life single. And before that, we had Youth Gone Wild from the Matt Fallon demos, which were recorded before Sebastian Bach was in the band. Right now on the line, we've got Dave the Snake Sabo from Skid Row. Earlier, we talked about his influences growing up, as well as him being a member of Bon Jovi, as well as auditioning for Cinderella, and now it's time to turn towards Skid Row. So, Snake, how did Skid Row come together?
Well, I had put together a group of guys that I had played with before, or that I had known in and around my area. At the same time, I had been networking myself really hard and getting to know people in the music business in New York City, and different songwriters and who were outside of the city that introduced me to people, in publishing companies and record labels, and they were very kind. And I started utilizing those connections and building relationships, and at the same time started putting this band together. And one of the things that John Bon Jovi had told me, he was like, he goes, "Man, I'll do whatever I can to help you. You put a great band together, and I'll do whatever I can to help you." And I was like, fucking right. So as this is going on, as I'm working on this, he's writing, Slippery When Wet. So I'm auditioning people, and I've got everybody in the band. But problem is I couldn't get a job anywhere. So money was scarce, and you're eating macaroni and cheese every night, or cup of noodles, and that's how you live, and you scrounge and do whatever. Well, John said, we had written a bunch of songs, and John said, "You know what, I'm going to bring you guys into the studio down in Philadelphia, where he recorded 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit." Well, the night before we're supposed to go in, our drummer decides to go out to a nightclub and get all hammered, and then sit up till, I don't know, 10 in the morning doing blow, and ends up stabbing somebody in the heart or near the heart, and obviously ends up in jail.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I get this phone call. I don't even know what time it was, but it was in the afternoon. Charlie's in jail. He stabbed Bobby. And he was friends of mine. And Charlie was our drummer. And Bobby, this guy Bobby Ebbs, full-on punk rocker, but smarter than 99% of the people I know. He was the one who got stabbed. It was in his apartment in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And I don't know, Charlie had some sort of blackout or whatever. I don't know what kind of drugs he was doing, but the cops found him wandering down the street with the knife still in his hand. So obviously, I go to the hospital for Bobby, and it turns out, he's so lucky because the knife missed his heart by millimeters. So he's going to be okay. But Charlie's in jail, and we have this studio time booked, and we need another drummer. So lo and behold, John calls up Tico, and Tico's in New York City, and Tico comes down to Philadelphia and plays drums, which was pretty awesome. In that time, though, of playing, doing those demos and everything like that, we realized that the other guitar player couldn't cut it in the studio. And we realized that we were going to have to get rid of him, which sucked because he was one and is one of my best friends. And that was really difficult. So we needed another guitar player. But that didn't happen for a while. What happened is that I while I was down in Philadelphia, I had met some people who owned a music store in Toms River, New Jersey, and got along really great. This one guy was like a father figure. This other guy was like an older brother. And so they gave me a job. Lo and behold, in walks Rachel Bolan. I see this guy, and he's got like a red leather jacket or a white leather jacket. Yeah, white leather jacket, I think, and like this red beret on and long black hair. He just looked like a rock star. Just carried himself like a rock star. So immediately I'm like, man, I want to get to know this guy. So I asked around about what he does, and he's a bass player, and he's got a band, and so on and so forth in Toms River. So I start talking to him. We become pretty fast friends, and I'm like, I start laying out everything, John Bon Jovi, the band Bon Jovi, Derek Schulman, and all these people at publishing, Michael Alago at Elektra, and so on and so forth. And so I don't know whether he was impressed or not, but I guess he was, because or I think he was more curious, see if I was full of shit. And so he said, at one point we decided, let's get together and write some songs. When we first got together, it was obvious that we were supposed to be writing songs together. And so I was like, well, I've got this band up in North Jersey or Central Jersey, and so we'll rehearse a few nights a week. Why don't you come up and jam with us and see what you think? So he would come up and jam. At that point, I had gotten rid of the bass player, who happened to be the guitar player's brother, who we were about to get rid of. I kind of ousted the whole family. Luckily, we're all really great friends today. And so Rachel had basically said what I had already known. He's like, you know what? He goes, I think if we're going to do this, we really need, another guitar player, and another drummer, and probably another singer. So got rid of the other guitar player and got rid of the drummer. And Rob Affuso was really good friends with David Bryan from Bon Jovi. So David suggested him. He came down, and we thought he was great. And we got along great. He seemed to fit in really well. And then guitar players, we auditioned a bunch, and Rachel had suggested auditioning Scotty, because Scotty had played in Rachel's previous band. And Scotty came in and played, and I was like, wow, this is wild, but is this going to fit? I didn't know if it was going to fit. I always wanted two guitar players in a band. Scotty had never played with another guitar player. And I remember Scotty saying to Rachel and me, it was like, man, he goes, I don't care. I'll sit in the back and play rhythm guitar. I just want to be in this band. And I was like, dude, you're such a good guitar player. I would be the biggest dick if you didn't play lead guitar and be up in front, and we be this guitar team. And that's how he came into the band. It was October of '86, and then we went out and did the first three shows of Bon Jovi's Slippery When Wet tour, and it became quite apparent to us that we needed another singer, especially when Doc McGee came up to us and goes, you guys have got great songs, you're a great band, your singer sucks, you need another singer.
And that was Matt Fallon, right?
Yeah. And no disrespect for him, it just wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
So we went on this 9-month journey searching for a singer, and just auditioned so many people. People that you probably know. Oni Logan, who sings with George Lynch.
Oh, really? Wow.
Danny Vaughan, who sang with Ty Ketto.
Yep.
Robert Mason.
He's in Warrant now, right?
Yep.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people came down, and it was always close. Oni was real close. Danny was real close. Robert was real close, but it wasn't it. It didn't fit the name Skid Row.
So now Sebastian's living in Toronto at this time. How did you manage to find him?
Mark Weiss, the photographer, knew Sebastian from doing a photo shoot with Madam X. Sebastian had played in Madam X, and then he wasn't playing in Madam X anymore. Dave Feld, who went on to go work at Atlantic Records because he discovered Saigon Kick and signed him, he told us that Mark knew of a guy. And what happened was, I think it was Mark Weiss's wedding, that Sebastian was there, and Sebastian got up and sang, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, this guy's got an amazing voice. So between Dave Feld and Mark Weiss, we had already demoed some stuff. 18 Life and Youth Gone Wild were on that demo. And so we sent that up to Sebastian, and Sebastian was attempting to work something out, ironically, with Steve Stevens at the time, to be a part of Steve Stevens' band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Sebastian, this is 87. And, Steve had the Atomic Playboys at the time. And so finally, I don't know whether it was like Sebastian's friends or his girl at the time who became his wife. And I don't know who it was, or basically, put something in his ear like, if you don't do this, you're retarded, And so he flew down to New Jersey, and, we actually he got off the plane, and he had a good buzz going, and we went to a local club that, we were there every night, and we ran the place basically. We had we had free reign of the club. The owners were fantastic, and they loved us. And anyway, we all got up on stage, and we did 18 Life and Youth Gone Wild. And the cool thing about doing those songs was that we had been playing in that area for so long and had become really, really popular, that the people knew these songs. So the funny thing is that we played them horribly, really bad. And then after 2 songs, we basically announced that Sebastian was our new singer, and that's where we started from. And then we started rehearsing down in Toms River at Rachel's parents' garage, and getting our shit together from there. And now we had the band together, and now John and the guys in Bon Jovi were like, now we can help you, and so on and so forth. And of course, Doc was giving his input, and then finally Doc said, well, Doc didn't say he'd like to manage us. The funny thing is he just told us he was managing us.
Wow.
That's a true story. Basically, Rachel and I were over at John's house, and hanging out. Doc was there, and we were talking about the band and songs and stuff like that, talking about whatever, and all of a sudden Doc goes, okay, this is what we're going to do. Rachel and I kind of looked at each other like, wow, what's he talking about? This is what we're going to do. And Doc starts laying out this whole thing, and we're like confused. So we just let it go and kept going and went through it. And the Doc goes, let's go out to lunch. So we go out to lunch, and I forget how it happened, but I think it was like Rachel and I kind of finally said, well, are you managing us? He's like, yeah, what the fuck you think I'm doing? So we never asked him. He told us. So that's how that started. And it was obviously a monumental moment for us. From there, it just, things started really moving fast. We got to quit our day jobs, which was awesome. And we just kept writing and rehearsing and playing anywhere we could and building our show and building our image. And it was such a great, great fun time, man. I mean, we were actually in a band playing music, and people were responding to it. And then More people were responding to it, and then record labels were responding to it. It was wild, man. Couldn't believe it was actually happening, and that we had, Rachel and I had put this thing together, and this thing was really going somewhere. And then we got the record deal, and initially our first record deal, believe it or not, was with Geffen Records.
Really?
And we hated that idea. We hated it. Number one, we hated it because when we had done a showcase for them in New York City, a couple people who were very famous with Geffen, and I won't mention their names because I don't want to bag on them because I actually like them, but we played 19 songs, and they said we had two songs that we had. We just had 2 songs out of those 19 that were worthy of being on a record. One of them didn't even make the record. So, and then they're like, well, where do you rehearse? And we're like, we rehearse in New Jersey, Toms River, New Jersey, in a garage with a propane heater, man. And the A&R guy said, well, you'll never find me down there. And I was like, really? And then Doc called us up at Rachel's house when we were rehearsing and said, congratulations, you got a record deal. And so I'm on the phone with Doc, and I'm relaying the message to the guy. I go, dude, guys, we got signed. Everyone's like, no way, no way, no way. And we're freaking out. And then he goes, yep, you're the latest signing, and you're on the roster of Geffen Records. And my heart sank.
Oh.
My heart sank, man. And I told everybody on the phone, everybody in the band, we're on Geffen Records. And I'm like, all right, Doc, I'm going to call you back. Thanks, man. We sat down, and everybody was bummed because, it just didn't feel right. And Atlantic Records, Jason Flom was relentless, man. I loved the guy because and I still do. He was relentless. He wanted this band so bad that he did everything in his power, showed up at every show, brought the president to the show, brought Ahmet Ertegun to the shows. He was calling me up, and he would literally find me at my mom's house if I wasn't at my girlfriend's house. He had my numbers, and he would find me, and he would just keep selling Atlantic Records, selling it. He's like, you know what? He goes, I wouldn't change a thing, man. He goes, I love these songs. I love your band. And that's what we wanted. We wanted that person who believed in our music because everyone else that surrounded us did. Mm-hmm. So why would we get involved with someone who didn't? And we talked about it and got on the phone with Doc, and we were like, Doc, this is supposed to be like one of the most monumental days in our lives, and we all feel like we got kicked in the balls. And he's like, why? And I go, Doc, first of all, Geffen Records has Guns N' Roses. They're not going to pay attention to us. Secondly, Geffen Records wants us to be Bon Jovi Part 2. I go, because at that point, we had already, pretty much been confirmed for the next Bon Jovi tour, the New Jersey tour, given that we had a record deal and we would be putting a record out to support on that tour. So, you know what? I mean, you have a record label. Any record label would jump at the chance to sign the band because regardless, they have the biggest upcoming tour of the fucking summer. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be in front of, 18,000 people a night, every night for, 100 shows. So Doc said, okay, sat down with David Geffen in LA and said, talked to Ahmet Ertegun and said to Ahmet Ertegun, who's obviously just an absolute legend. He started Atlantic Records for God's sakes. And I loved Ahmet. And he said to Ahmet, he goes, Ahmet, I'm going to go with Geffen. And Ahmet calmly says, what do you want?
Wow.
And he goes,
oh, wow.
What do you mean, what do I want? He goes, I already gave David my word. And he's like, what do you want? Doc goes, well, this is what Geffen has given us. And Ahmet said, I'll give you more. And he goes, now you go tell David Geffen that you're signing with me and Atlantic Records. David will understand. So Doc sat down with David Geffen and said, well, David, I'm actually going to sign with Atlantic Records. And David, has a response. And he goes, look, David, Ahmet made me an offer and for the band, and I had to take it. And David was like, you know what? I would be pissed, but it's for Amit, so you go do it. And that's the respect David had for Amit Ertegun.
Wow, that's crazy.
Pretty amazing.
It's funny how all these labels at the time were, fairly well connected with each other too, eh?
Oh yeah, because they all were, David came from Elektra. He was a part of the Warner Brothers system. So he started Asylum, and that became part of WEA. Eventually, and then obviously went on to start Geffen Records, and everybody, all the presidents and all the heads, they all knew each other, man. Walter Koff knew Bob Krasnow, knew Mo Austin, knew Amit Ertegun, Doug Morris, the list goes on and on. And but yeah, it was at times a little bit incestuous, but you know what? They were still in competition with each other, and there was a lot of backstabbing as well.
Oh, geez. So, Snake, we've got to go to another break right now. Can I get you to pick a song from both Slave to the Grind and Subhuman Race, and then we'll come back and talk about those records?
Ooh. Quicksand Jesus.
Okay. Yep. And from Subhuman?
And Breaking Down.
Oh, great. Do you mind if I play the remix from that one, the Michael Wagner remix?
Yeah, no worries.
Cool. All right, here we go. So from Slave to the Grind, this is my personal favorite Skid Row song, Quicksand Jesus. 99.1 CGM FM, you're listening to the Signals of Intuition, and that was Skid Row with Breaking Down, and before that we had Quicksand Jesus off of the Subhuman Race and Slave to the Grind albums, respectively. Tonight on the show, our special guest is Dave the Snake Sabo from Skid Row. And so far, we've been talking with the band's early days up to the recording of the first album, and now it's time to get through Slave to the Grind and into their new material. So before we look at that, Snake, a lot has been said about the band's name, and I know a member of Gary Moore's band said you guys screwed them over or flat out stole the name or something, and I mean, to me, that makes no sense, because obviously if you guys had stolen it, they would have sued you guys back in 1989. So what's sort of the story behind the name and all of that?
Okay, first of all, the story, the name came up, and this is the God's honest truth. Rachel and I were driving up the Garden State Parkway, and we saw tire marks from a car, obviously jamming on its brakes or whatever, on the street, on the road. We were like, holy shit, man, I hope no one, got killed. And I said we should call the band the Skids, because we had been searching for a name, and here's an interesting little tidbit that no one really knows. Originally, the band was called Darkness.
Oh.
How funny is that?
Yeah.
So, and it was taken from an Aerosmith record, a song on an Aerosmith record that was called that. So, anyway, I said, let's call the band the Skids, and Rachel goes, let's call the band Skid Marks, and we're like, ha ha ha. And I go, Skid Row, and we both laughing, and all of a sudden the light bulbs went off, and we looked at each other, and we go, that's it. Now, we were actually headed over to John's house to play him some stuff and get his thoughts. And we said we think we came up with a name of the band. And he's like, what? And we go, Skid Row. He goes, it's fucking genius. Now, mind you, the Skid Row that Gary Moore was in, that Brush Shields is speaking of, was in 1968 in Ireland. Now, in 1968, I was 4 years old. They released one record or two records, and they were only known in Ireland. How I was supposed to know of a band that was from 1968 that was never released a record in the United States or North America? How the fuck was I supposed to know that there was a band named Skid Row?
Yeah, exactly.
So, of course, doing a search, we found out that, in fact, Gary Moore had a band called Skid Row. We're like, oh, shit. So the long and short of it is that our management and lawyers contacted whomever represented Gary Moore at the time, and we paid a fee, and we bought the Skid Row name, and we own the trademark.
So the whole thing about him getting screwed over or whatever, that's completely false.
Oh my gosh, I still want to know how he got screwed over, because trust me, that money came out of my pocket. So, to buy the rights. So if that money never got to him and he started Skid Row in Ireland, I've got nothing to do with that. And I whatever. And the only reason his band was over and done for so long, and then all of a sudden we became successful, and it's like, hey, wait a second, which I get. He's got aspirations of being, a worldwide recording artist.
Mm-hmm.
Here he saw a way to get his name out in the world, world's public consciousness by attaching it to us and so on and so forth, and basically saying we stole it, and I don't know, whatever the case is, it's he was using it as a ploy to just get, to garner attention, which he garnered some, but probably not as much as he thought he would.
Oh, for sure. And then, so shortly after, obviously, you guys did the first record. And I gotta say, one of my favorite tunes from that record was the B-side that you guys didn't release till later, called Forever. Yeah, did you guys record any other songs from that record that never got released, like Walk with a Stranger or anything like that?
Yeah, we recorded all that stuff in demo-wise, but never for the album.
Oh, so you didn't do that with Wagner, right?
No. Well, actually, the last demos, yeah, were all done with Wagner, but there was 19 songs there. That was in part of pre-production. There was 19 songs, and we did them in 2 days. So it was like, let's get in and out, do the songs, and see what we've got.
Are those all the demos that are leaked on the internet?
Yes.
Like Walk with a Stranger and
Yep.
Knock 'em Dead Kid? I don't know. I can't remember the names of half of them.
Oh, Knock Knock.
Knock Knock, that's
or
it.
something like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Have you guys ever thought about redoing any of those?
No.
For any upcoming? No?
No.
Just kind of laid them to rest?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, especially when we went with what we did with Slave to the Grind, that stuff kind of didn't fit where we were at that point, and it kind of kept going in a certain way after that record, and for better or for worse. But some of those songs, I mean, I still love. Some of them I don't. Some of them are difficult to listen to. I mean, but I look at it and it's the truth, because that was the growth of two guys who were writing songs together, finding their way to get. You have to go through all that to get a Youth Gone Wild or an I Remember You or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so now I want to kind of jump. We'll just kind of jump from album to album, get like a question through of each, and then we'll get to your new stuff.
Okay.
Slave to the Grind, obviously. What was sort of the, like, did you guys say we're going to toughen up here and, we're going to make something that's heavier and more mature, or did that just sort of happen through the songwriting?
Both. And I'll tell you what happened is that everyone sits there and says, you got your whole life to make the first record, you've got this and that to make the second record. Whatever, everybody knows it's the truth. It's, whatever. What they don't say is that, or maybe they do, I don't know. But what a lot of people, from what I gather, never really talk about, and this is what happened with us, is that we toured for 16 months on that record, on the first record. We could have toured for longer. Aerosmith wanted us to keep going, and I had to be the guy to go to Joe Perry and go, we have to make another record, man. We have to. I go, where people are just going to get burnt out on us. So he was really, really cool, and it's so cool that, you're on tour with your heroes, and I mean, fuck, it still blows my mind to this day. Anyway, the most we had ever traveled as a band was from, New Jersey to Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, and Toronto.
Yeah, kind of where you guys lived.
Yeah, that's it. That's where that was the extent of our world traveling. All of a sudden, you record a record. You're in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, not even wondering why you're in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. You're just happy to be there, and you're doing a record with Michael Wagner, whom you love, and it's going wonderfully. And you don't know what to expect. You don't. For me personally, I didn't sit there and say anything. I didn't sit there and go, "Oh, we're going to sell this amount of records." None of that. I couldn't have been more happy just to be making a record and that it was going to get a chance in the public forum. So with the second record, now we've got 16 months of traveling the world several times over, being seeing different cultures and different ways of life, and also seeing a dark side of the music business as well. Also, I can recall as time went on, we would, in our dressing room, we'd be listening to a lot of heavier stuff. Motorhead and the Cro-Mags and Iron Maiden and the Ramones always, Kiss always, Motley Crue, Judas Priest, heavier stuff than what.
Yeah, because at that point, I mean, metal was toughening up too. I mean, you had Judas Priest doing Painkiller and, Metallica getting heavier and Testament getting heavier and all those bands.
Yeah. So all that stuff was a big influence, and that kind of carried over into the songwriting of the next record. It really did, because the attitude was the attitude. We were, we wanted to expand and utilize more of our influences, and Rachel has a very deep punk influence that wasn't really explored except for a little bit on the first record. Sebastian had, obviously Rob Halford was a god, and so he had that range that he wanted to explore, and we all had different things that we were bringing to the table. I mean, I was a huge new wave of British heavy metal fan, so all that stuff came into play, and so Rob was a huge Rush fanatic, and Scotty was the guy that was like the Jeff Beck guy, and the David Gilmour guy, and the Billy Gibbons guy. So he wanted to explore a little bit more of that. So, you put all those things together where the main influence is going to be, or the main direction is going to be a heavier record. And then you add all that ancillary influences to that core. That's what you come up with, at least from us. And I can tell you one thing though, it's as genuine and as pure as it gets, man. There was no talk of, well, we have to follow up I Remember You. There was no talk of we have to follow up 18. None of that. There was no talk of that. We just wrote.
So it's just, hey, let's go out, let's write it. Just a real kick-ass record.
Yeah, we just wanted to write a great record.
Yeah. Is it true that Pat Robertson tried to get Quicksand Jesus banned from the airwaves, or what?
Yep, that is true. Wow, good research, man. It's very true. Very, very true.
That's unreal, because to me, that, it seems to me if you're going to ban a song, I think it was probably just the song, the word Jesus in the title kind of set him off, maybe.
Well, it was the title. It was Quicksand Jesus.
Yeah. Which
he just looked at and felt, I presume, that it was, drowning Jesus in quicksand. It had nothing to do with that. It was a metaphor. If he read the lyrics to the song, he would understand that from our standpoint, we saw faith, not just faith in God or it was faith in a higher power, faith in your inner self, faith in your inner God, faith in humanity. We felt from our standpoint that after, traveling what we did, and, the Gulf War was just starting, and that had a big impact on Rachel and myself. We saw faith deteriorating, and our message in that song was, you need faith, man. You need faith in something. You need faith in the good, in people. You need faith in a higher power, whatever that higher power may be. Mm-hmm. That was the message of the song. If there is a message, that was what that song intent was. And if he had taken half a second to fucking read the lyrics and be intelligent enough, you don't have to be a friggin' rocket scientist to understand those lyrics. Mm-hmm. Maybe he would have embraced the song.
So then jumping to the next record really quick. So like Eddie Trunk, I'm a big Subhuman fan. I don't know if I'd say it was your best record, but I still really love it.
I do too.
What made that record so different from the first two? Like, obviously, I presume grunge had something to play, but what, just the whole record just sort of has a totally different vibe than Slave in the first one.
Different producer, number one, Bob Rock. I'll be honest, I'm shocked that record even got made. We were so at odds with each other. I mean, Rachel and I were not at odds with one another. We were just so discouraged with the infighting and how we were all not on the same page at all. from a personal standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a creative standpoint. We were just so distanced. And Rachel and I being the primary songwriters, we need to be on the same page. And there was so much negativity surrounding us, and it was that record was. There were very few fun moments in that record. Let me say, very few.
Yeah.
And then, so I think, not to interrupt you, but I think that at some points that record seems a bit unfinished.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially on some songs, you kind of get that vibe.
And that's because it is. It was like you get to that point where you've just exhausted everything that you have within yourself. And yet you have to release a record, and you only have a certain amount of time because people have obligations. Your producer and your engineers and whatnot, and the record label has all this other stuff coming out that they're blocking this certain amount of time to dedicate to you, and so you have to figure it out. And because of our less than acrimonious feelings for each other, we just again, I don't know how we finished that record.
Yeah.
I really don't. There was a lot of the anger that we had for Slave to the Grind was directed at the ugly side, the black side of the business, the dark side of the business, the dark side of humanity. In this Subhuman Race, the anger was directed at each other.
Oh God, yeah. That's when a band hits that point, it's just. You're dead. You're dead in the water.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it really, I honestly, I had some hope for that record. I thought that, because Breaking Down was in that movie, The Prophecy, and that it had, the movie debuted at number 3 and it did really good at the box office. I thought we might have a shot. But once I got word from, our radio and promo department at Atlantic that, a radio station in Florida played Breaking Down, and it got so many calls. They didn't say who the name of the band was. And it got so many call-ins, people going, I love it, I love it, I love it. And then they announced it was Skid Row, and that was it.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Yep. We had, in New York City, Q1043, which was the biggest rock station in New York at the time, was only a few years old. When the first single we released was My Enemy, we got a phone call from Doc. We were over in England. We were getting ready to do Rockline with Bob Coburn. It was like 4 a.m, London time. And so we were getting ready to do it via satellite. Doc calls us right beforehand and goes, congratulations, you have the #1 most requested song in the history of 1043, which again happens to be the biggest rock station in New York City. We're like, oh my gosh. This is awesome. We might, there's hope. And we went on this thing. We did what we called these live listening parties, where we play the record through the PA, and then we come out and do a show. And everything was going really, really well. And then all of a sudden, new program directors came into Q1043 from Boston, from BCN or I forget the other radio station up there. Anyway, they didn't like us. They dropped the song from their playlist immediately.
Oh, geez.
And that was it. That really was it. Because they were definitely one of the stations in the country that other stations looked to.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a song gets dropped like that, other stations notice it, and they either think it's because of phones, or phones aren't ringing or whatever.
Yeah.
Case in point was that they just didn't like us.
Oh, geez, man, that's so sad. Sadly, we've got to go to a break on a bit of a bummer note, but to sort of bring things up into the positive, I'd like to play a couple songs of what you guys are doing now.
Okay.
Can you pick a song off of Thick Skin?
Down from Underground.
Oh, awesome. That song, I believe, is the first song I ever learned how to tab and fully play on my own. Like, if you want to learn 18 in Life, you can just easily look up the tab.
Right.
But that song, there was no tab, so I spent weeks trying to figure out the solo and all the different parts to the song.
That's cool, man. Thank you.
Oh, no worries, man. Looking at the clock, I don't think we're going to have time to get to revolutions per minute because I want to play a couple songs from what you guys are doing now.
Sure.
Can you pick a couple songs off of United World Rebellion?
There's only 5, so. Yeah, the first 3 tracks, Kings of Demolition, Let's Go, and This Is Killing Me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Let's do This Is Killing Me and Let's Go, and then we'll save the single Kings of Demolition for the end of the show.
Okay, that makes sense.
Great. Okay, so here's Skid Row with Down from Underground, and we'll be back with more Dave Sabo after this. 99.1 CJAM FM. That's Skid Row right there with This Is Killing Me from their brand new album United World Rebellion Chapter 1, which came out about a month ago on Megaforce Records. Before that, also from that record, we had Light the Fires, Let's Go, and kicking the set off from their 2003 album Thick Skin, that was Down from Underground. Tonight on the show, we've got a very special guest. We've got Dave the Snake Sabo still on the line. He's been with us for the first hour and a half of the show, and he'll be sticking with us until the very end. So, Dave, we haven't had a chance to talk about this new material, but instead of releasing a full-length album, you guys are actually doing a series of 3 EPs. So why the decision to release them sort of over a span of time rather than just one album all at once?
In all honesty, it's really simple. With a full-length album, you want to create as much content as possible. So you're looking at 12, 14 songs, whatever the case may be. And then you've got to live with that and attempt to tour off that for at least the next year. You spend a lot of time working on those songs. We are not adept at writing on the road. We've never been good at it. We've attempted it so many times and we failed so many times. It's just not in our blood. So we write when we get home, and oftentimes that takes, quite a long time. To create 14 songs, and then you tour on that for a year. You have to dedicate a year to promoting that record, I think, at the very least. And then we have so much information out there, so much music. There's no filter. You're bombarded by music every day, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever. And it makes it really difficult for discovery. And even though Skid Row has a name that people recognize, people still are going to have to discover our music. It's not like we're selling millions of records and people go out and buy it automatically. They're going to have to discover it. They're going to have to, we do have a core of faithful fans, but you also want to reach beyond that, and those people are going to have to discover it. And it's very difficult to get it discovered because there's so much out there. I call a lot of it white noise because that's what it seems like, at least to me, because I always... I'm in management, so I always want to find the next big thing as well. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, oh my gosh, just how do you siphon through all of it? So take that into consideration. Also, the financial responsibility of going in and making a good quality record. Mm-hmm. It costs money, not like it used to. And no one's giving you advances anymore.
No, it's basically all out of your pocket.
Yeah.
Now.
So it is anyway. It always has been.
And no one realizes that part of it right. too.
It's just that you're not getting money fronted to you like you used to, basically. The bank has cut down on the loans. And so we're talking about it, and I did this with Down, where those guys have a lot of different irons in the fire. Philip has his solo stuff, and Kirk has Crowbar, Jimmy's got I Hate God, and Pepper does stuff on his own, COC, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So everyone's got a lot of different stuff. So when it comes time to do a Down record, a lot of pressure there. And I was like, you know what, man? Let's figure out a way to alleviate the pressure and have fun, and not sit there and go, okay, we're 5 songs in, we still got 8 more to go. It's like with everything that everyone's got going on in their lives. You're working 4 times as hard to make a quarter of the money that you used to. And that's reality. That's the economy. Unfortunately, a lot of music has become background music. It's not as, rock stars aren't the rock stars anymore.
Yeah, it's not like it's a major part of your life anymore. It's sort of, I like this music, put it on, and you're done with it.
Yeah, it's a shame, man. It's been diluted. Luckily, luckily for bands like Down, who have a legacy with their members and the band itself, they have a strong, really strong core audience that are going to stick by them. They're loyal. So we wanted to alleviate the pressure. We figured, you know what? Let's create an EP of 5, 6, 7 songs. Go in and record them, and again, your financial requirement is a lot less than if you're going and doing a full record, and you have more fun doing it because there's just a large weight lifted off your shoulders, and then you go out and you tour for a few months on it, and then you go back in and write and record the next EP. So you have a constant flow of material that is new material every 5, 6 months for however long you want to do it.
Yeah, and then it's great too as a fan, because that's the thing I hate is you get an album, and then you got to wait 2, 3, in your case for the last one 6 years to get more material, as opposed to you get a little sampler every couple months, and it keeps you engaged and excited.
Yeah, and I also think that it does, because then people, if you make a great EP, people immediately go, I can't wait for part 2, for chapter 2, and luckily that's been the case. People have, sales are going to be tough. There's no doubt about it. I'm aware of this. I was aware of it before we released the record. All I know is that we wrote the songs to the best of our abilities, and I could stand behind every song on that record. And again, it was a lot of fun to do, man. It was a lot of fun. And we kept the cost down, so therefore you keep, it's an EP or a mini album, whatever you want to call it, and then you can keep the cost down at retail too, so people aren't breaking the bank, and they can actually go out and buy your record and buy someone else's record, as opposed to only being able to afford one CD. You know what I mean? And people got smart a long time ago when they were buying records that had 12 songs on them and only 3 songs were good. And they felt they were getting cheated, and that's where Napster was born. Necessity is the mother of invention, man. When you got college kids who are living off dollar meals, they're not there on a scholarship, and they just want to, music helps them get through, their exams and the pressures of college life and stuff like that, satisfying their parents' expectations. You need music, man. Music is that lifeblood that helps you get through the stress and the turmoil and the chaos of everyday life. College kids felt they were getting ripped off. Everyone felt they were getting ripped off. And it was because the record labels were putting out records, and they weren't sitting there and governing over it, or at least keeping a watch over it, and making sure that there were 12 great songs on a 12-song record.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the kids got pissed off. They're like, fuck this, man. We're not paying for this. It's like, who wants to pay for a Big Mac and the first bite is great and the rest of it is poison?
It's a great analogy.
Who wants that? They're never going to go back and pay for it again, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And so, you know what? A 19-year-old kid got real smart. He offered the record labels a valid proposition, a new way, a new technology of a delivery system of music, and they're so fucking greedy, and they were so naive that they thought the old model was going to continue to work. And you know what? As the youth of America usually does, it made a greedy elder generation of music business executives look fucking stupid.
And then, so this new record, did you guys have a conscious choice to sort of make the sound old school, or like, because Revolutions was very kind of punk inspired, and this to me sounds more like the Skid Row of the first 2 or 3 records.
Yeah, it was conscious. I mean, I think that when Rachel and I first started, discussing what we were going to do and getting down, starting to write together, and so on and so forth. It was conscious for us to get back to listening to what inspired us in the first place. And all that stuff to us remains sacred. Although it's the music that influenced us in getting us to the first record and the second record and so on and so forth, that stuff became part of our life again. Sometimes you just get so wrapped up in all the other aspects of life that you lose or put aside certain things. And for me personally, I got so wrapped up in the music of the clients that I work with, and that I just, at times, I just didn't want to listen to music. And then It was like, okay, got back to it, started listening to early Iron Maiden records and Judas Priest records and, Van Halen and Ozzy and Black Sabbath and all that stuff that got us to those first couple records. And so I guess it really had the influence on us that we wanted it to have.
Now, just a couple of questions about gear, because I'm really curious. What model is the red LTD that you play?
All I know is it's the red LTD.
Is that a custom or?
No. It's so funny because none of the guitars that I ever get from ESP are custom. They're all off the rack, man.
Wow.
I went to the factory when I was living in California. I lived literally 2 minutes away from the ESP factory, so I would go down there, and it had been a while. What had happened was they had given me a few guitars, back in the day, and they gave me this one white guitar that I got straight off the rack. And this is when they were still in New York, and it was a guitar I played from 1990 until about 4 years ago when an airline lost it.
Oh, jeez.
That was my baby, man. That guitar I played on every record from the moment I got it, and it was just one of those magical guitars, man.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost it, and it broke my fucking heart, man. And it gave me the run around. It was Frontier Airlines. Was it Frontier or Midway? I think it was Frontier. But it was one of those things where they gave me a run around. Well, you have to provide a receipt for it. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I go, here, how about I provide a video for you when I was on Saturday Night Live playing this guitar in front of, 12 million people in the United States. How about I do that, you fucking idiot?
Oh, God.
And so needless to say, I never got the guitar back. Someone's got that guitar somewhere. And it sucks. It's just really shitty. But I pulled that off the rack, and then the red one I pulled off the rack, and I've got a black one somewhere. I think my buddy's got it down in New Jersey and was fucking around with it. But
is that the one you used on? Because I watched the video of you guys cutting United World Rebellion. Is that the one you were using in the studio?
The red one?
No. I believe it was black. It's an ESP. It's not an LTD.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, because I really love the tone of that guitar when I was listening to it. So.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, and we went through a boatload of amps too, combining them and stuff like that. The 6505 plus, the 6505, the 5150, the 5152, the new EVH heads, Marshall 71 or 71 plexi, Jazz Chorus, JC 120. Did we use a boogie at one point? I'm not sure. We may have used a boogie for one of the rhythm tracks. I'm not sure, like a dual rectifier.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Cool. That's all the amps I use and love. So that's pretty funny right there.
I think we may have even used I don't know, a JCM 800. I'm not sure.
That I know that amp. Like if you hot rod that thing, you can just get an insane tone out of that.
The 800?
Yeah.
I like the 900 better, but yeah, I could see that. It's so funny. I played Riveras forever. The old school ones, I still have them. Unfortunately, the one that was brought down to Atlanta was the wrong one and didn't work, and we weren't recording for all that long a period of time. So by the time I would have sent it out to LA or wherever they are in California and gotten it back, it would have been too late anyway. But I love the Rivera heads, man. My lord, they're just so amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's one head I've never had the chance of trying. Well, you say they're great, eh?
I've never played their new stuff. I mean, the stuff I have is from 1990.
Oh, I see.
So, and they worked with us. I mean, I used that all over Slave to the Grind.
Okay, now I must check that out, because that to me is still one of like my ultimate guitar tones. What you guys got on that record?
Tell you what, the Monkey Business guitar tone took me and Michael Wagner 2 days to get. We spent 2 days getting that tone.
And did you guys keep that dialed in for the whole record?
A lot of it. I mean, some of it didn't work properly on other tracks, but for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, because you can hear that on like The Threat and Slave and a couple other tunes. Yeah.
That was that white guitar, man. That was that white ESP.
Oh wow, crazy.
Yep.
Do you think we'll ever see a proper live album or DVD from you guys?
Yeah, I do. If we could, gosh, we're so damn critical, man. Yeah, I think there might be a live DVD next year.
Oh, cool.
Again, it's like we're so damn critical, and we're like those guys who don't want to go in and do overdubs and or anything like that. I know all of the great live records in history that's how they're done.
Mm-hmm.
We're all really, really well aware and disappointed by it, but that doesn't change the fact
Unleash
that
in the
they're still
studio.
our favorite records. So who knows? I mean, if we could have that one magical show somewhere, that would be great.
Yeah. And then now, so speaking of sort of live stuff, are you guys doing any new material in the set?
Oh yeah, absolutely, we do.
What are you guys doing? Kings of Demolition?
Yeah, we do Kings of Demolition and Let's Go.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Are you doing any more obscure tracks? Like, I don't know, what's number 9 on Slave? I'm blanking on the name.
Oh, In a Darkened Room.
In a Darkened Room, thank you.
Yeah, we do that. We do Psycho Love sometimes.
Nice.
We do Beat Yourself Blind off Subhuman. What else? We do Quicksand Jesus.
Nice.
When we were in, we do a couple songs off of Thick Skin as well.
Oh, nice. I really love that record.
Me too, man. Me too. I'm really proud of that record. We should have handled it differently. We were so disenchanted with every aspect of the music business that we actually just hurt ourselves by the way we didn't distribute it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was hard to get when that came out. I couldn't find it anywhere.
It was so stupid. But I love that record too. I'm really proud of that record. So we'll do like Ghost off of that record, and we'll do Thick as the Skin. We do the Threat once in a while off Slave.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, I was just about to ask you about that. Have you guys ever played Midnight at all, or no?
We did. The last time we played it was 1989 at the Ritz in New York.
Oh my God! I can't believe you can remember that offhand. That's crazy.
With Easy-O opening up.
Ah, so that now explains how you guys came to cover Fire Fire.
Yeah, we were fans. We wanted Easy-O on the bill, and they happened to be in New York at the time. We were fans of theirs big time. Obviously still are.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then you guys did United as well.
Yeah.
Which certainly fits the theme of the record.
Well, it was so funny, man. Rachel and I are big Judas Priest fans, huge Judas Priest fans. And ironically, that's his favorite song. And so when it came up that the label in Europe wanted us to do, 2 cover songs, we're just sitting there and all of a sudden he goes, oh my God, he goes, what's my favorite Judas Priest song? And I go, United. He goes, yep. I was like, oh, that's perfect. And then we were going back and forth about different, another track, and everybody was bringing up suggestions, and some of the stuff was so close, but it just didn't feel right. And then all of a sudden, I had my iTunes on shuffle, and Fire Fire came up. I'm like, oh my God, we got to do this. And the lyrics are apocalyptic, and so it seemed to be fitting in the mold of like what Kings of Demolition is about, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I presented it to everybody. Everyone's like, oh my God, I fucking love that song, and so it was really cool. And so we went in the studio in Atlanta after doing a short tour, like a 2-week tour in Europe. Flew from Prague to California, did a show in California, did a show in Tucson, Arizona, flew to Atlanta, landed on Sunday night. Monday morning we were in a studio and learning both songs.
Oh, jeez.
So we learned both songs and we jammed on them, and then, laid down the drums and laid down the rest of the instruments. And after that, it was recorded both tracks and then mixed them and mastered them in 4 days.
Oh, geez. That's intense.
Yeah, it really was, especially with the schedule that we had where we did 11 shows in 13 days and then flew straight from Prague to L.A. That's not a short flight.
No.
So it's amazing that, I'm really, really proud of everybody that we still have the energy to be able to do that.
And then, so in addition to chapters 2 and 3, which do you have any timeline for when those are going to be out?
We're attempting to make sure that we keep like a five month gap between them. We're actually I'm leaving on Monday to go down to Atlanta, work with Rachel on the next EP.
So you figured, like, I was thinking you're going to do like maybe a year and a half between them, but you're thinking probably closer to like Christmas 2013.
For the next one?
Yeah.
We're actually hoping to do it before then.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
That's the whole point. We wanted, like I said, we didn't want people to lose interest. And like I said, I know that can happen with with the deluge of music that we get bombarded with. And, so when you release a record, you want to be able to create something that is, useful and just easy for people to get a hold of and not get bored of.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. And I think you guys have done a fantastic job of that on this latest release. And on that note, we've got to wrap up the show right now, but I want to sincerely thank you for taking out the time to do the interview.
Oh, Brandon, no problem, man. I'm just happy that someone's interested in talking to us about the band and our new stuff.
Oh, you're so welcome, man. Congratulations on the new record, eh? And I'm really looking forward to parts 2 and 3, as well as catching you guys just outside Detroit in Woodhaven, Michigan on July 13th.
Well, thanks again, Brandon. It was really great talking to you. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your research, too. You really, you knew the history of the band and you knew our current stuff, too. So.
Oh, no problem, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, pal. You be well. Hopefully we'll see you soon.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Thanks, pal. Bye-bye.
That was Snake Sabo of Skid Row, and if you missed part of the interview, you can catch it on CJam's website at www.cjam.ca in just a few minutes as a podcast when this show ends. Here's the lead-off single from Skid Row's new album United World Rebellion Chapter 1 called Kings of Demolition. Thanks again, Snake, and I'll be back next week.
The bullet and the Bible we'd offended with. You can't believe what you've been told.